You know, it never fails that when I need my handkerchief, it disappears. I have no clue where my hanky went. But since I returned home from my visit to my family, my nose has been telling me that spring has sprung. And I have been noticing my favorite flowers in the neighborhood, which is lilacs. We have tons of them here in Denver. So I think today I'm going to attempt a walk over to the Botanic Gardens and see if the lilac garden is in bloom yet. And I thought that might be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about evoking emotion in our books and this whole show don't tell thing. I have a few ideas on that concept as well. So I don't know if my video will turn into anything useful or not, but we'll give it a shot. So come and join me for a trip to the gardens. Haha, we made it. So, hopefully you'll be able to hear me. I wanted to chat a little bit about this whole show don't tell thing because I realized the other day as I was working on my editing work for a friend, I was bringing that up a lot. I was mentioning it, and it dawned on me in the meantime what terrible advice that really is. Not in itself, but just in the way that we put it out there. You know that when people give advice and they give advice as though it's obvious, but it's really not. So we can generally learn to see when telling something in a narrative is obvious. For example, she sat on the bench amid the lilacs, closed her eyes and smiled as she remembered happier times, something like that. So this is obvious telling. I'm telling you exactly what I'm doing. But how does this differ then from showing? Because if you think about those two actions, when we show someone something, we are still kind of presenting it as an obvious thing. So what makes the difference between show and tell? And it came to me the other day, well, the difference is evoking emotion. So that's where that comes in. We have to have a way to make the reader feel something when they read the passage. So instead of sitting on the bench, maybe she plopped down on the hard wooden bench, right? Because we have an idea of what plopping is. It's a fast motion. It's not a graceful motion. The hardness of the bench tells us about what it feels like, and again, reinforced by the fact that it's a wooden bench. So we know that wood is generally hard when you sit on it as a chair or a bench. She closed her eyes and her lips curled into a smile as she remembered better times. This curling motion, it's a slow motion. And so it gives us a better idea of what's going on. but still there may or may not be a whole lot of emotion involved in that. So how do we bring in emotions? Things like if you say, he was sad, that is telling something, right? But if you say, tears stung his eyes, or his eyes stung, depending on what the rest of the context is, well, then we know that there are tears in the eyes, and we know that this is an uncomfortable feeling. So what I'm getting at is we need to factor in senses, the senses. What does something smell like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? And add that into our narrative in order to evoke better emotions, because just saying or just describing something doesn't always evoke the feeling that you want it to. But if we add in sensory perceptions, it does a much better job. So, because I don't like doing chatty stuff while I'm out and about, I'm going to kind of leave it at that and hope that my ramble made some sort of sense. I will be also adding in some resources in the description, because there are 2 particular books that helped me out with this, with adding sensory description into my narrative. And one of them is I believe it's called the Emotion Thesaurus. I've brought that up, I think, in the Gifts for Writers video. And the other one was a book on outlining, where a specific part of doing the outline when you're outlining the scenes is to look at the scene. You have your outline of what's happening in the scene, right? Beginning, middle, end. But then one of the portions of that is to look at the scene again and say, okay, how can I add the senses into this scene? And as many of the senses as possible. So both of those things were very helpful for me to try and improve on that showing rather than telling. How much I've improved, I have no idea. Maybe not much, but I do think that is the missing link in when we are often told to not tell things. We are almost never told to add in senses, and the importance of senses in evoking emotion. Yeah, so I think that's that. And if I come up with any other thoughts, theories, ideas, I will add that in later. But for the moment, I am going to spend some time sitting on the bench amid my lilacs and call it a day. Enjoy the day. And by the by, should you be curious about how I incorporated my favorite flower into one of my books, which is the one on promotion, or not on promotion, but the one I'm promoting this month, his Silver City Promise, then I am going to see about doing maybe an excerpt reading video up next, since I haven't done one of those in a little bit. So
Just saying. Keep an eye out if curious.